Okay, Philip, you were just going to give us a tip that any farmer or landowner can use in relation to, I suppose, we've a drain here and maybe we want to reduce the nutrients flowing into the watercourse. What do we do, Philip?
Okay. Well, an easy way to do it is to do an in-channel wetland, so an in-channel buffer zone. So basically, this is a very typical drain profile. So we've got our base, water is flowing along, it's very shallow. And so what we want to do is we want to hold on to that water for as long as possible. That's the ideal. Hold on to it, slow down the flow, allow space and time for the sediments to settle out and for the nutrients to settle out with them. So what I'm doing here, there's a bit of a flow. Now, the flow is blocked because if you want to look up there, there's one that we've just done a minute ago. So you can see that flow coming down. It's blocked behind the dam, and we've just planted 3 yellow flag iris. So they'll thicken up in that space and provide a filter area. When the water flows over this dam here, I'll just tamp it in a little bit there just to keep it a little bit more stable. When the water flows over that, it'll trickle along this space, nice and slowly, actually too quickly just here, but you can see at the bottom here where the water is already beginning to settle, so the soil is flatter. So what we'll do, rather than working on the steeper areas, I want to get the maximum use out of my dam. So I'm going to work in this deeper area. There's a bit of water mint there. I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to keep it. Oops, I just broke that one. And take that water mint out, and it's this simple, you know. I mean, if you want to know if it's water mint, just have a sniff of it and it'll tell you very quickly. So I'm planting the water mint there. That'll grow away now again, so just cover that in, and that'll grow and it'll spread in that area. So I'm taking that out so that we can dig here. So what we'll do is very straightforward, just dig it out a little bit and begin to make a small dam. I'm keeping back from the pipe because I don't want my sediments to be drawn into my pipe. I don't want to block that. So I want to create a bit of space between the two. That's a wee bit loose, that material, so I'm widening this slightly to generate some dry material. And in widening it here, what's also happening is that we're making our drain base a little bit wider. And in doing that, what we're doing is we're increasing our filter width, increasing our filter surface area. Stones then just to stabilize it maybe. It's a very, very loose sand, you know. This might wash away, so a little bit more heavy material. Actually, what's ideal is a bit of sod. So if we can find a bit of sod to go over the top, that would help to bind it all together, and the roots will go down and they'll stop it from washing away during heavier weather. Place that on top of it, tamp it down gently. Pull that material up to the side. I want to keep the middle of my dam low and the sides of my dam high so that the water is channeled in the centre. Oops. So I'm just pressing it in the middle, just to keep it a little bit lower in the centre so that it doesn't erode the sides of the area. And now we've got some yellow flags here. So these are iris. We'll get down to the roots. Right down to the roots, and then snap the plant again. There we go, so that's our yellow flag rhizome underneath the soil. And if you can wrap your hand around that side, they'll snap easily enough. Just press those down into the soil like that, and that's your soil. Another couple of water mints here, already in the drain, so we don't even have to buy any plants in. We just plant that. I don't want to go too deep because I don't want to drown my plant, so I'm putting the bottom of it right down in water, and the top of it trailing up a little bit, because when this fills with water, I don't want to drown my plants. They might be wetland plants, but they're surprisingly easy to drown. So that's it, and what we'll have is something similar to this one here. The water will rise up, and you can see there any solids, like if you got a cow walking through a drain, anything like that, you can see the amount of silt and clay that's being churned up, and even rainfall washing in off the edges. So what the pond is doing is just holding that back. You know, it's small little a small little retention pond, and then it'll trickle over the top and away off to the next one. And ideally what you do is you'd put in a small dam like this so that the water from the lower dam just touches the toe of the next dam up. So you've got a series of steps down along your landscape.
So depending on the, I suppose the lie of the land, if you want to say that, you would spread them out.
Yeah.
So look, I suppose this time of the year I'm seeing a lot of work being done on drains and things like that, and vegetation being removed. Just summarise your thoughts on that for me.
Okay. Well, if a drain needs to be cleared, there's a couple of reasons why you might want to clear a drain. One is if you've got stone shores coming in at the edge, for example, and you don't want the drain level to rise up to the point where they block the old stone shores. That might be an area where you actually want to lower down the drain. Very often, drain maintenance isn't really necessary. You certainly don't need to clean out a drain just because it's got lots of plants in it. But if the water level is rising above a certain threshold, you might want to lower the level of the water slightly. If you do that, if you can work in 20-metre chunks, so clean a section, leave a section, clean a section, leave a section, you've got all the plants and all the insects and everything living within that section that you've left alone, and then they'll recolonize the other areas. So then in 5 years' time, or whatever it is, you can clean out the alternate sections. And at that stage, the insects and the plants will have moved across.
So what are your thoughts on addition of gravel to drains?
Personally, I'm not a great fan of that. Gravel it'll bring up your base prematurely. I'm not entirely sure that it's necessary. I mean, you can put it in by all means, but actually the leaf litter, when the plants rot down, the leaf litter is going to do the same job in terms of filtering the water. Because one of the advantages that gravel has in drains is, if it's an open drain, one of the advantages that it has is that you get a microbe scum building up on the surface of the gravel. So as the water trickles through it, you've got that very, very large surface area contact between the water and the microbes that are stuck to the gravel. Now, you don't actually need to use gravel for that, because once you've got leaf litter, like if you fire in that type of material, that's what will be falling in at the end of each growing season. So you fire that in, and hey presto, you've got, as that leaf litter falls in every year, you've got that fixed film that fixed media that the microbes can stick to. So if there's nutrients in the water, as the water is moving along, it's actually the bacteria and the microbes that are sticking to those leaves that'll do a lot of the water filtration as it goes down along.
Okay, so in summary, less is more. Use what you have around you and maintain the natural habitat of your drains.
Pretty much. There's another thing that I'd add to that, and that is minimize the amount of covered drains that you have. If you can keep the drains open, then you've got a chance of improvement to the water quality. If this was a drain that was piped all the way from the source, wherever the source is up along the catchment, whether it's a spring or a road or whatever it is, as that's moving down through, if it was piped, there'd be no treatment taking place. Because it's an open drain, even if it's just going through a muddy bottom like this, what you're going to get is contact with the air. It'll reduce the biochemical oxygen demand. Your nitrogen will begin to volatilize into the air, so you get a reduction in ammonia and nitrates and stuff like that, just gently, and every measure that you introduce then along the way will improve that filtration. Whereas as soon as you put your water into a pipe, suddenly your benefits are gone. You can't really improve it when it's stuck underground. So keep the water open as much as possible. And the other thing that I'd add is there's fences on either side here, and these fences are protecting the watercourse from the cattle. So even though they can stick their noses under and graze, a little bit close to the edge, we've got willow roots, you've got yellow flaggers, you've got the grasses, water mint, all sorts of stuff that's growing there, so that at least as the water moves through from the field to the drain, it's got a small buffer zone to push through,